And the mask path are these points here, which you can then use as keyframes, which is really a remarkable little thing that you can do. So we're going to do that to create the path for our animation. All right, so let me see here. Now I want to create a null object layer. The null object layer will follow this path. The null object layer will control the particles by using this path as its source of motion. So I'm going to right-click down here and say New Null Object. And if you've never worked with a null object is just an empty layer, but you can move it around. You can adjust its position. So I want its position to be on that path. So I'm going to open up this, go to star here. If I press the M key, it displays the mask. And if I click on mask path, you don't see any keyframes here, but believe it or not, if you just click on mask path and do Control or Command C to copy, you're actually going to copy a whole bunch of keyframes that you don't see. It's a really cool thing. But they're there. All these little points will be keyframes. And now I can go to the null object and press P for position and make that active and put the current time indicator here at the beginning, or actually I'll put it in a little ways because I want the animation to start just a little bit into the comp. You could adjust these later, but I'm doing this now. If I do Control or Command V to paste, it'll paste in keyframes. And the keyframes will be 2 seconds long. That's by default. So when you copy a path, you're actually copying a whole passel of keyframes, one for each of these points there, all the way around like that. And then when you paste it, the keyframes show up in a 2-second time duration, which you can easily adjust. So in fact, to adjust it, when they're all active like this, and you can make keyframes active by just clicking on the name of the property. Now they're all active. If you click on the last one here, or the first one, but we'll do the last one here, hold down the Alt or the Option key, you can stretch them out over time, which is really cool. And we'll probably adjust this later when we adjust it to the duration of the sound effect that we've applied here. But now if you take a look at this little null object layer, I'm going to turn off the star and the background here, just the null object layer. If you see that null object layer there, which is represented by that square, which by the way won't be visible when you render this, but if you look at that, you can see it's now going to follow the star, follow those keyframes, which I think is really a slick way to make an animation. All right, we'll turn things back on now. And the trick now is how do we get that animation to follow, how do we get that animation there to directly control the particle animation? So I'm going over here looking at my notes here to make sure I haven't missed something. Okay, I think we got that. Okay. All right, yep, I think we're okay. So what we need to do now is create expressions for the particle's position. If I go back to particles, make that active, turn that on, and I go to the Effect Controls panel, I'll close everything else down here. There are position X, Y, and Z. We're going to control X and Y. We're going to work only in the 2D plane, not in the 3D depth here. But you could also animate a 3D animation if you wanted to go back or forward in space. But we're going to work only in the X, Y plane. If I were to try to animate that with keyframes using these guys here, it's kind of weird. I'll show you. If I drag it to the right, you see that when I go to the edge, it's just 0.5. You would expect it to be some number like this 360 or something like that, depending on the width of the comp. But it's not. And that number depends on the pixel aspect ratio of the comp and the aspect ratio of the whole comp. So it's kind of difficult to use this guy to control the producer. So I'll do Control Command Z to undo that. Back here. So what you do is you use something else to control it. Use the null object layer to control the animation. And that's really the big takeaway from this class. And besides the fact about learning about how you can copy and paste keyframes in a path, the takeaway here is that you use expressions to control the animation of the position.